So this seminar is going to be geared towards standardized testing, SATs, ACT-wise, and subject tests. So raise your hand if you've taken the SATs before. Okay. Have you taken the ACTs before? Okay. All right. Okay. So these two are standardized tests that help college admissions officers get like a gauge of how you compare with the rest of the country. They're not supposed to tell you how smart you are or how well you've done in high school or how well you're going to do in college. It's just more of a standardized way to compare you to the rest of the students in your grade. And the good thing about them is that nearly all colleges accept both, so you can actually choose which ones you want to take, but there might be a few exceptions, so just check with your prospective college and see if they prefer one over the other. So how these tests are different. SAT wants to assess your innate ability, while ACT actually tests your knowledge of subjects that you've taken in high school. What I mean by that is kind of like the language and the format of the questions. SAT is much more abstract. It's not like any of the tests you've taken in high school, like the standardized test that you probably have to take every year. ACT is much more concrete and familiar. It's straightforward in what they're asking and what they're asking you, like the answers they want you to get. SAT is much more easier to coach. Once you get the structure down and format down, you can almost kind of guess what kind of questions are on the test. So with a lot of practice, you can improve your SAT score faster over the ACT. And SAT, definitely the biggest thing is learning the language, while the ACT, you have to practice timing because you're going to be pressured for time to double. Even though they do accept both in probably all schools, I have found that the ACT is preferred along the eastern seaboard and the west coast, while the ACT is preferred in the Midwest and the South. Okay, the basics. The SAT is 3 hours and 45 minutes long. ACT is 2 hours and 55 minutes, but if you add on the optional writing portion, it's closer to the time of the SAT, and that's because SAT is so long because in 05, you guys probably know they added in the writing section. So that extended the time a lot longer. SAT is 10 sections, while the ACT is 4. Even though it's 10 sections, it's not 10 different subjects they're testing you on. They have like repeated critical reading sections, repeated math sections, and repeated writing sections. SAT does have that mandatory essay now. ACT is 4 sections: reading, math, English, which is your grammar, science, reasoning, and if you want, you can add in the optional essay. It comes at the very end. It's a 30-minute long essay. What I want to tell you about the science reasoning section. ACT has it, SAT doesn't. The science reasoning, it's not actually testing you on how well you're good at biology, chemistry, physics. It's more about how well you can interpret graphs and what you can get from the graphs in a very short amount of time. And the ACT, the optional essay, it is optional, but some colleges might recommend it. So if your college recommends it, or if you think that you're a good essay writer, definitely take that extra 30 minutes and take the optional writing portion. Content analysis. SAT is much more vocabulary based. ACT actually doesn't, even though you obviously do need to know some vocabulary words, SAT actually has a greater emphasis where you guys are all juniors, right? I would recommend that you guys maybe learn 10 words a day. Just build up by when you do take the, that's so much. Really? Yeah. So if you do take it by your senior years, you'll have that basic vocab. The math is geometry, algebra 1, algebra 2 for SAT, and ACT is geometry, algebra, and trig. Even though trig is a little bit harder than SAT algebra 2. Are you guys all taking trig right now, or what's the math you guys are taking? Algebra 2. Algebra 2, and when does trig come in? Or
in my school next year.
Next year? Is that kind of for everybody? Pre-calc. That is trig, right?
We had trig and pre-calc together.
Together, okay. So next year when you guys actually do take the ACTs, that's going to be fresh on your mind. So even though it might be a little bit harder, you just learned it. So that actually might be a benefit. The math style. SAT has more tricky language, when it doesn't just ask you how to compute something, it'll ask you in like a weird wording, so you actually have to logic through what they're actually trying to get out of you. You'll know what I mean when we do sample questions. And ACT is much more simple, straightforward, and has, it's actually, you know exactly what they want from you. It'll come out with like a concrete number. Reading comprehension, it's much more abstract. It's about your interpretation. So some things they'll ask you is how might the author respond to whatever passage you read. And ACT is straightforward, content-based, and questions are like, what did I read? What happened to the character? So you can actually go back to the passage and pinpoint exactly where the answer is. The grammar section at SAT, since it just came out like a few years ago, it's, I guess, people say that college admissions doesn't look at it as much as the math and critical reading. While on the ACT, it does, the college admissions does look at it. And then science, you know, that ACT test is, SAT does not. And there's a greater emphasis on speed for ACT and mental endurance. It's a longer test for the SAT. Okay, now we're going to talk about scoring a little bit. SAT is on a scale of 200 to 2400. Each section, critical reading, writing, and math are 800 points each. The biggest difference is ACT does not take off for your wrong answers, while SAT takes off a fourth of a point if you get it wrong. If you don't answer it, you don't get a point and you don't get anything deducted. If you get one wrong, if you get one right for the SAT, it's 1 point plus. And ACT is on a scale of 1 through 36. And now I think both of them can hide your scores from colleges. We didn't have that last year.
Yeah. Do you understand how that works, the whole hiding scores? So what we had to do is, if we took the test, we had to submit all the sections to the colleges and just say, we took the SAT 3 times and they can see everything we took. What you guys can do now is you can take it multiple times and only show them the parts you want to show them. So say you did really bad one year, like if we did really bad, we have to show them that really bad score. You guys can say, no, I don't want to show them that. I'll just show them the good one. So that's it.
Yeah, also keep in mind that they do look at your high scores
Yeah.
from each section. They'll pick out the high scores.
I'm going to combine. Some schools don't, but most schools do.
Yeah, most schools do.
Hmm?
Yeah, so let's take like your highest math. Like let's say you took the test twice, took the SAT twice. And let's say one time you did really bad on math, you did really well on the reading and writing, and then the other time you did like the same on reading and writing, you did a lot better in the math. You can take your highest math and put it with your highest reading and your highest writing to get your overall highest score.
And sometimes the benefit of not having scores that they can maybe see your improvement, like that you've improved over your first time. Just real quick tips. Know the format of the test. Take them more than once. And definitely take the practice tests both to know like which one you can probably do better on. Okay, SAT subject tests. Does anybody know anything about these?
June, hurry.
Okay, subject tests. Okay, so they're they test on specific subjects. So if you're really good on like biology or something, I'll show you the list real quick. These are the subject tests that are available. So if you're good at any of these, like even if you speak a second language, you can take that with like a listening portion. If there's an asterisk, that means there's a listening portion available. And